Hey everyone, just want to talk about some of the arena changes here. 7.1, they just announced that there will be a couple of changes to Hearthstone Arena, and most notably, the first one is Arena will change from wild format to standard. And that's something that's been in the talks for a while because one of the biggest complaints about Arena is, like what do you play around when there's too many cards to play around? You would think that with more cards, it would add another dimension of skill, but actually, when you have too many options, instead of playing around specific answers, you literally are just better off hoping your opponent just doesn't have it, right? So, like, do you play around? I mean, Mage is a bad example, but like Fireland's Portal or Flame Strike on 7, that's one of the easier ones. Do you play around Abyssal Enforcer or Blast Crystal, right? Like, that's another simple one. Or like, do you play around True Silver Kings or Keeper of Alderman or Consecrate on turn 4 versus Paladin? I mean, these are some old examples, but it just felt like as more and more cards got introduced, that it was harder and harder to play around specific answers when there's just too many cards, too many possibilities. So I think it ultimately will be a good thing, even though a lot of people are sad that we'll be losing a lot of the wild cards. But I think overall it will make Arena better. Also, I think Blizzard has done a really, really good job of trying to keep it fresh and actually keeping Arena in mind for once. Not to make a jab at them, but just like, Arena is like the subsection of Hearthstone, I would say. Like the majority of players who play Hearthstone play Constructed, Standard, or Wild, right? And a subsection of the community plays Arena, but they do care, and they've been listening. With the leaderboard coming out last month, and with plans to do that in the future, I think these are steps that I've personally been pushing for a long time. So I'm really, really happy to see that, that change is coming and changes are being made. Secondly, the changes to card rarity distribution. Basically, common cards were 78% of all arena cards, and they generally leaned towards common cards being very easy, very basic. Think River Crocolisk, right? It's a 2-mana 2/3 beast body, but like it just doesn't, you just play it and it's there. And then whereas like for epic quality cards, it was a little bit more complex. For example, like Recombobulator, that's an epic 2-mana 3/2 that I don't even know the actual card. Hopefully it'll be here somewhere, right? Bam, video editing magic, whoosh. But it like changes a minion into another random minion of the same cost. Stuff like that is a little bit harder and trickier to use, and they tend to assign rarities that way. So they wanna up the amount of offerings for rare, epic, and legendary cards, which will make it more interesting. Because right now, the better drafts, the majority of your cards have some sort of effect right away, whether it's a battle cry or it's a spell. Think of what the strongest minions are right now, right? Like Abyssal Enforcer has a battle cry with that body. Dark Iron Skulker is a good example. Some of the Discover cards are really powerful, right? I mean, of course we have like the strong basic cards like Zombie Chow or like Piloted Shredder where you just play it and it's this just insanely statted creature or minion. You do need the ones that have kind of an effect as you play it. In addition, the cards Abyssal Enforcer and Flame Strike. I feel like a lot of people have been complaining about Abyssal Enforcer. I'm not sure if people have been complaining as much as me. Abyssal Enforcer, right? Like I freaking hate that card. Abyssal Enforcer and Flame Strike will show up 50% less in Arena. It feels like they were just like, okay, shut up. Arena players, shut up. We get it. These cards are OP. I'm actually sad to see the Flame Strike one. I didn't feel like that was as big of a problem as Fireland's Portal, per se, but, I can get behind it. Like, the idea is that Warlock and Mage are two of the stronger classes. Mage has always been top 3, right? I think this is the first expansion where they're not sitting at the very, very top. I think Rogue was a little bit higher than Mage in a couple expansions, but Mage has always been top two out of 9 is pretty good, pretty good. But yeah, Abyssal Enforcer is ridiculous right now, especially with Blast Crystal being in there too. I'm really happy to see that one nerfed. Like, they didn't want to change the rarity, I get it, so they're just changing the frequency at which that card will show up, which is good, because I think, like, you know, by the 4th Abyssal Enforcer, you just really, like, it doesn't even feel like a game at that point. It felt like a lot of drafts had at least 2 through 4 once you got to high mana wins. More spells in a run. So another change that they're doing is they want to have spells have a higher offering rate, because, yeah, I mean, they affect the board right away. And that's a really big deal to be able to catch back up, especially with like AoE spells, yeah. I think that should be interesting. I mean, like, there are certainly classes with stronger spells, such as Mage, Warlock, Priest, right, like the spellcasters traditionally. And then there's some weaker classes with spells, for example, like Warrior. The spells on Warrior tend to be a little bit weaker, right? Like Shield Slam comes to mind. Shield Block isn't the best. Cards like that are just a little bit weaker than the counterparts. But I wonder if that means that they'll have more weapons offered too, or they just want the spells. Oh, a lot of neutral class cards tend to be minions without any text that lack interesting effects. While they're great for introducing newer players to Hearthstone and providing baselines for power level comparisons, they don't make for compelling arena run choices. Blah, 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 blah. Right, so this goes back to, like, oh, maybe that was what the River Croc thing that I talked about earlier was, where, you know, you just play a 2-mana 2/3, and then you play like a 3-mana 3/4, and then you play a 4-mana 4/5, and then you play a 5-mana 5/6, and then you play a 6-mana 6/7. I mean, that's actually a pretty sick curve, but it's just not very exciting. There's not much to think about. I remember when I was doing arena co-ops with Mike Donay. I always say his name wrong, but Mike Donay. Final answer. I'm sorry, Mike, if I said it wrong. You're watching this. I don't know why. It's like when they tell you and you explain it, and then you just keep thinking about the other one. Oh, anyway. I used to do co-op runs with him every Wednesday until I switched my schedule to a later time slot. It's just not possible for me to co-op with him anymore. But I remember every week we would co-op, and we would like be roping every single turn, and there's a lot to think about. And then this one week happened where we drafted this deck that was just so boring. I don't remember what class it was, but it was basically like we had 28, 29 minions that did nothing. And he would ask, like, it's like, oh, what do we do now? And I would be like, well, we play on curve, and we hope that our opponent doesn't kill our stuff. And he's like, okay, but what if they kill our stuff? And I was like, well, what do you want me to say? Like, our hand doesn't do anything. Like, nothing in our hand does anything to affect the board other than just put stats out there. And I've always kind of used that example when back when I used to complain about mages, that meta. I mean, that was a few metas, right? But it was like, it felt like playing Plants and Zombies, where the mage is the plants, and then I'm the zombies. And so you're just like putting stuff out there, and they're just shooting you back, pushing you back with all the right answers. And you're just like, here's a River Croc. Oh, Frostbolt. Oh, here's a Piloted Sky Golem. Oh, Polymorph. Here's a 7-mana 6/5. I can't even think of a 7-mana 6/5. Violence Portal, right? Like, you just like are always getting your stuff answered, and then if they're ever able to build a board as they're answering your stuff, it just felt like pretty hopeless from there. And so it's kind of cool that they're taking that approach, because I do think it's really unfortunate when you get drafts and you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, my hand actually does 0 things. So yeah, that should be fun. The stronger drafts and the more fun drafts are the ones where you have battle cries, discovers, spells. So I think overall, I'm excited for the change, because that'll make for less boring runs. I personally hate retiring runs, not only because it's a waste of gold, but just the principle of retiring runs. Yeah, I don't like it. And now it feels like even if you get weaker runs, it'll still be at least a little bit of fun, and you just don't have to play you know, creature that does nothing, creature, etc., etc. Lastly, I want to touch up on that Mike. I remember that conversation during that run with Mike, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I think we'll start lowering the offering rates." I think he was hinting at this. I think they've probably been working on arena stuff for a while, right? It takes Blizzard a while to go through with a change, even if they talk about it early on. I think he was hinting at it, I'm not sure, but I remember him just saying like, "Oh yeah, we should get rid of more of those cards and put in more cards that do things." I was like, "Yeah, that'd be good. That's a good thing." So yeah, it's just cool seeing that feedback gets back to them. I think just want to give a nod to Blizzard and say that you know, I feel like Blizzard and especially the Hearthstone team gets a lot of flack for whatever reason for being. I mean, I'm not, I don't think so, but like lazy and they don't care about the community and blah 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 blah. I think it's quite the opposite from my experience with talking to the Hearthstone team. I think they care a lot, and I think that they're doing their best, and this is an awesome nod to Arena, so I'm really happy about that personally. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I think they've done a really good job of keeping the game fresh, especially this year, and I'm really excited to see how these changes will affect Arena, and I'm excited to relearn a new meta. Thanks for watching!